This is Ron Simmons, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the interactive interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Hey, this is Chuck and James Walsh. We're sitting here with the man, Ron Simmons. And we're going to start out, man. If I'm not mistaken, you were just recently inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, right?
What better honor can it be, right? That lets me know I did something right when I was playing football, right? Although I missed a couple of tackles, but I think I might have made more tackles than I missed.
I tell you what, I hear you were a pretty violent, angry man there on the FSU football field, tearing it up, right?
There's no other way. Listen, when you're playing football, right, brother, violence is the only thing you can know. Now, I'm not promoting it, but I sure as hell promote it when I'm on the football field.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you and The Rock have a little bit of a rivalry, you know, the whole FSU-Miami thing going on?
Listen, man, hey, look, that wasn't no rivalry. What that was, listen, he better be glad I wasn't coming through there when he was playing, right? I would have just gone, I would have ran on the field, pulled a Woody Hayes on him, right? Just ran out there just to tackle his ass, you know? Right? That's why I took it out on him when I got him in the Nation.
I think that actually leads us into a pretty good question James has got about the Nation of Domination days.
Sure. The question is basically when they came in, they had you pretty much doing like the Black Panthers almost kind of angle. What was your interpretation of the Nation of Domination angle? How do you feel it played out?
Well, they didn't have me doing an interpretation of the Black Panther, you know, as far as that, the way that goes. Hell, I was the Black Panther when I came into there, right? And still got some of that in me. I mean, you know, that's just that was part of the way I was feeling and the way I had looked at things, you know, from the outside. And then what better way to get something more across when you're being a professional wrestler, right? And what gives the realism in my view of it is when you are somewhat of that character. And at that time I was. And that's why I think that went so well, you know, when I was doing that, you know, because of that militancy that came out in it. But if you notice, I was very diversified in it when I was doing that, right? I had whites in there, blacks, Latinos, everybody. So I didn't discriminate. If you couldn't get the job done, you didn't belong in the Nation.
Of course, you were the first African-American WCW heavyweight champion, which proves that you did more than things right on the football field. You also did it right in the ring. How is the honor of being the first African-American WCW champion?
Oh, man, that's true. I don't think I'll ever set in on me, you know. And as you can see, that everybody wants to get to know me now. You know, that's my phone ringing now, you know, right. That's probably a member of the Nation. But, but anyway, that does to me. I think that's one of my biggest goals, man. That is the biggest, because what that did is open up a lot of doors, man. That has been, you know, it had primarily been a sport and a business that had been monopolized by whites, you know. And the struggle was hard, you know. And as you can see, you look around, I mean, at the level that you want to work at, it still hasn't balanced itself out, but it's gotten better. So I was just proud to have been able to stick with it, open up some more doors so you can see some of the more talented black young men and women coming here now. And I think that I did a good job in it, and I hope that if anybody can benefit from it, that they do.
A perfect example of that would be, of course, Booker T, right? He went on to be a 5-time, as we all know, WCW champion. So, you know, you paved the groundwork for him. That's the way to be.
And he's an excellent wrestler, by the way, man. You know, done a good job.
What would you say the major differences between WCW and the WWF were in terms of the way the companies were run?
Night and day, if that is to put it plainly to you, right? During the day, you can get a lot more things accomplished, right? Am I right? So in the nighttime, you have to sneak around, cut each other's throat, you know, and do things behind each other's back. That's the way WCW is ran. Now, as opposed to Vince McMahon is one of the best promoter that I have worked with, you know, that I've even been associated with. And I'm proud to say that. And I wouldn't say that just to, you know, like to kiss his ass. You know, the guy's good. And he's very good at what he does, you know. They had a bunch of people down there running WCW that had any business whatsoever what they were doing. They were taking people just running around that were running pizza shops and doing this, never set foot in the ring. You had no idea what they were doing, you know. It's kind of hard for you to tell me how to play football when you've never caught a pass, isn't it? When you never touched a damn football, how you going to tell me how to play? But we got a lot of people doing that these days, right? Right, you know. So that's how that went.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people we've talked to have even said that they're not a big fan of Vince McMahon per se, but they still respect his business savvy and his knowledge of the wrestling business. So, I mean, you definitely got to give credit where credit is due in that area.
Yeah, you got to give the man his props, whether you like him or not. See, hey, the guy is great at what he's done. It's generational passed down, and what better way to get to know it, all the aspects of the business, than to be in it like they have been their entire family.
After The Nation, of course, you were part of the APA with JBL, who's now the WWE Heavyweight Champion. What is your gut reaction when you hear that JBL is now the world champion?
I feel, hey, man, I've been up and down the road with him for like 7, 8 years, you know. Hell, that's my boy. I'm thrilled to death. And I don't care he flipped out or whatever, right? I'm still on his side. You know, I got to pull for him. That's my man. That's my dog. We've been together like that, you know. We know each other, you know. We know what it takes. We know the ins and outs, you know. We know what to have to flip, you know, the side of it and everything. I want him to keep the belt and to go on being a champion for as long as it's possible, you know. But although he's got his hands full now, I'm right there with John Cena. Guy's young, got youth on his side, very athletic, very strong, quick, agile. So everything, you know, he got all the favorable attributes. But one thing, you can have all of those, and those are very qualifications to have. But guess what? When you've got knowledge, sometimes, brother, overcomes all of it. And that's what JBL has on his side.
I got to ask you a quick question, going back to JBL. How much of your APA characters were actually just you guys and how you really were? Because it seems like all the skits I've seen and watched over the years were actually pretty genuine. It was like the two you guys were, you know, really good friends, and it wasn't like a whole lot of it was scripted. They kind of sat you down and let you go, man.
That's why it came across as you saw it and everyone else perceived. It was us. It wasn't nothing of rehearsed or a skit. This is what they wanted to do, and then whenever they brought in whoever it was, a character, whether it be, you know, rappers or midgets or whatever they, you know, or whatever the hell they was that they brought in, right? All they had to do was just bring it in and just sit them with us, because we would have, if we were in a bar without being in front of a microphone or being in front of a camera, right? We would have did the same thing to that midget, right? That we did when we were on that camera and at the table. So that was us, you know. That's the way we had fun like that, man. Enjoyed ourselves, enjoyed being around each other. And then I think a lot of people that had fun and wanted to do that because, you know, it wasn't nothing degrading, but that's just the way we did it, you know.
And, you know, it definitely came across well on TV. As I said, you could definitely tell you guys were having genuinely fun. And it was some of the funnier skits that you've seen on Raw in some time.
Let me ask you this now. What better place is it than to have a setting like that? Okay, you get a cigar, you get to sit down and have a few beers, right? Hell, you might even get to see a naked chicken, whatever, in there every now and then again. That's it. You know, doesn't get any better than that.
Any chance we might see you return to the ring to face JBL in the ring?
I will see how that, you know, what happens with that. But see, that's no animosity or anything, you know, as far as like with myself and everything, with him and all that stuff, you know. Things go down and happen, you know, but yeah, I ain't holding nothing, man. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Hell, it might even be a chance you might see us together. So we'll see what happens with that, you know.
I got another quick question for you. As far as the whole brand extension thing is concerned, it's played out for a couple of years now. There's kind of some rumblings there might be another roster draft, if you will. How do you think the brand extension is held up thus far?
Oh, no, man. You know, that's kind of hard to call, because when you look at it, when they go through that, you get certain fans are comfortable with time slots and seeing their favorites on one particular show, you know, and then the way people get balanced out working, their kids and all of that, you know, and then certain guys that are wrestling, they get, you know, caught in a groove that they're comfortable with, and then all of a sudden now they got a different partner, and it might even be, you know, a different gender, you know, right? So, you know, that has its ways of being positive for some guys, and then it doesn't work out like that for a lot of them. So that's a long shot to call, man.
Mind if we close out with a few word associations, but just a few names from your career? If you have a word answer, that's great. If you have a story you want to share, that's fine too. How about your former tag team partner in Doom, Butch Reed?
Great tag team partner. Great tag team partner. Yeah, one of the best.
How about Teddy Long?
Was a good manager, you know, very good manager. Had great big mouth, you know, covered up for myself and Butch a lot of times when we got tongue tied, you know. He's never tied, never lost a word, but very good at what he does.
How about somebody that actually was the promoter when you got the championship belt, Bill Watts?
I have no love for him.
Wow. Surprising. How about two more names, and then we'll let you go. How about the name that we mentioned about the college football, The Rock?
Made his ass. Totally forgotten about me now. Won't even stick me in one of his movies.
And the last name I have for you is your boss, Vince McMahon.
Great boss, and I'm not just kissing his ass. Like I said before, man. Good at what he does. If I'm not mistaken, they'll be doing that word associating thing. I thought I saw another word on there, and that was Vader, right?
Yes, correct, sir.
Kicked his ass. Became the first black heavyweight champion.
Do you have anything you want to promote here as far as WrestleMania goes? Any parting shots?
No, only thing I like to say, man, is, look, is that it's been fun kicking it with you guys, and hopefully we get a chance to do this again. And everybody out there, right, get a chance to tune in. WrestleMania is going to be one of the best.
And thank you for your time, Mr. Ron Simmons. We definitely appreciate it. For James, excuse me, this is Chuck.
This is Ron Simmons, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the interactive interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Welcome to the interactive interview on KASC, The Blaze 1260. It's James Walsh and Chuck D, and you know what? The trees are blooming, the flowers are beautiful, but you know what? That doesn't necessarily mean spring. It means it's time for WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, little WrestleMania 21. WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. Come up here this Sunday. We're going to spend a large portion of our show discussing WrestleMania 21. We're going to have some of our picks, some of our favorite Mania moments, all kinds of good stuff coming up. But I think we're going to start off with a little bit of Raw recap. James, tell me what you thought of the show last night.
Final Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania 21. I thought the show was adequate, but not sensational. I was not overly overwhelmed with a lot of the segments that they did have. One of the things I posted on my forums, which you can check out at WrestlingEpicenter.com, is that monsters should not make puns. And that was my problem with the Batista segments, that he was pretty much trying to be comical, and quite frankly, you're not funny.
I thought Batista came off pretty well last night. I didn't really have a lot of problem with this pun. I'm assuming you're referring to the whole thing where he said, "Are you talking to me?"
Yeah, no, that I liked. I thought that was actually a kitschy way to get it in there. Kitschy being my own little word.
Are you referring to his interaction with Eric Bischoff then?
Yes, when he came in and said he looks like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction.
See, I thought that was good. Batista's a man of a few words. I like his character, but I think him making fun of Eric Bischoff just kind of flows with the whole arrogant mantra that he's got going on. I know the show was a little bit light on wrestling yesterday.
Yeah.
For all of us who are actually wrestling fans, we may have been slightly disappointed. But I got to tell you what, one of my favorite scenes from last night was obviously the unintentional headbutt that Chris Benoit received, where he was busted open, what we like to call the hard way.
Yeah, that was not a blade job.
That definitely wasn't.
Yeah, that was a, oops, I just damn near killed you job.
What do you think about that whole opening segment? I thought it was an all-right way to get all the participants together, but I didn't understand why Kane wasn't there and Tomko was. I thought Tomko should have stayed in the back, and Kane should have came out and just, kind of floored everyone, like he eventually ended up doing.
I think I grasped why they didn't have him come out, and I think the concept behind that was that he lost the main event last week, and in wrestling spirit, or speak, this time in this era of wrestling, if you lose a match, they seem to think you lose a lot of face. So when he came out, you knew that he was going to come and destroy everybody so he can get his face back.
Now, what do you think of this whole arm wrestling segment we had to see?
Ugh.
I understand they're trying to build a match between Christy and Trish. I think a little backstage interaction, maybe a little catfight ensued, I think would have been just as effective versus taking up that much time, having like 3 arm wrestling matches, all of which provided us with the same outcome. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that sums it up in one word or phrase. Ugh. That was just a horrible segment. It really didn't do anything for me. And then she kicks Lita in the can, and they say that she kicked her in the leg. No, that was the can. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you think of the whole tag team action we saw last night? I understand,
Your favorite tag team was in there again, Maven and Simon Dean.
I actually saw a little something from them last night, and I was pretty pleased with. They were doing their little push-ups side by side, kind of a little reminiscent of Scott Steiner and Test when they were together.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think if they, get a name going together like the Kings of Fitness, something along those lines, dress a little similar, it could be a tag team, that could actually be viable, which is something that the WWE obviously needs to focus on at this point in time.
They have one legitimate tag team, in my opinion. That's La Resistance, and they're not exactly the most over guys in the company.
I'm hoping after WrestleMania we'll see a little bit more of a push. I know they have some good tag teams down in OVW that are waiting to come up and really kind of restore some glory back to that division. But as far as the match itself went, I'll tell you what, it was not a particularly pretty match. It looked sloppy, it looked thrown together. It looks like these guys had never even wrestled each other before.
Thrown together pretty much describes the entire match at WrestleMania with the 6 men on the ladder match. It seems to me like they had 6 guys, they had no idea what they really wanted to do with them, so they said, well, let's throw them in one match, and hey, how can we make it interesting? Throw a ladder in the mix.
Just to give you guys a heads up as well, we have Eric on the line. We're going to get to him momentarily. He's going to do some information regarding the WrestleMania that have gone by. We'd also like to feel free to have anyone else call in. Our number is 480-965-1260. Once again, the number is 480-965-1260. You can also listen to this show online at theblaze1260.com. If you guys are in your car, when you get back to your drum room, make sure you check it out. What other things stuck out in your mind last night about Raw?
Honestly, it was just not impressive of a show. I was expecting, some kind of a push for the Hall of Fame segment, maybe having somebody, even Hulk Hogan, show up to say, this is on Saturday night on Spike.
I think they only made one reference to it throughout the whole show.
Yeah, and that's not a good job of promoting it. And I do want to promote everybody, or encourage everybody to tune in this Saturday night, as it's the Hall of Fame on Spike TV. I'm not exactly sure what time it's on, but I will be watching it, and I will be probably tearing up because I am such a little mark for Hulk Hogan.
I'll tell you what, though, really impressed me last night about Raw was actually Muhammad Hassan. Yeah. I thought the match came off pretty well. I thought Hassan remained looking strong. Mm-hmm. And at first I was a little skeptical about his character, but I think he's definitely getting over in the right way now that he's toned down the anti-U.S. remarks. And I think he's going to be a strong character for some time to come.
I would agree with that. The only thing that really concerned me about that is he did the little Chris Benoit cutthroat thing while he was holding Michaels by the hair. And for some reason, an Arab guy doing something where he's like, I'm going to cut his head off, just seems a little bit possibly offensive.
Well, a lot of things that he does are possibly offensive, but I still think he's toned it down enough to where the fans can accept him as a heel, not trying to get cheap heat by just, spewing anti-American sentiment. And I think he really helped carry that match. I don't think it was Shawn Michaels carrying him to a good match. I think they carried each other to a good match.
Well, they worked well together. I think Michaels is just testing him out to see if he's going to be ready for the next step, seeing if he's able to carry himself in the ring, as we saw some people get that opportunity and don't make it. I know it's one of your favorites, but I think that's what they did with Shelton Benjamin, and they just kind of felt, well, he's not quite there yet.
Granted, Shelton Benjamin is not the best talker, but as far as his work ethic goes and the way he carries himself in the ring, I definitely think, he's a prime candidate for a Paul Heyman-type manager, or a Johnny Polo, or, any of those kind of type of managers. I really think could help put Shelton Benjamin on the map and get him up there. I think it's time to, give the Intercontinental title to, a little bit lower in the card than it is right now.
One thing I did notice is when he came out last night, and I by no means am anti-Shelton Benjamin, I just think he's getting a little bit too much credit sometimes. But when he came out last night, I noticed a couple spattering the booze. So I'm not sure if they're going the right direction with his character.
Right on. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break here. As I said before, we got James on the line. Feel free to call him. The number's 480-965-1260. James and I had an excellent opportunity this past week. This weekend, actually, when the WWE Road to WrestleMania swung by the Fiesta Mall here right in Mesa.
Yes, sir.
And we have an excellent Ron Simmons interview coming up, so make sure you stick and stay for that. We'll be back here just after the quick break and get right into that Ron Simmons interview. You're listening to the Interactive Interview with James Walsh. It's your boy, Chuck D. Make sure you keep it locked right here to the Blaze, 1260 AM.
Sounds good.
Hey, this is Chuck and James Walsh. We're sitting here with the man, Ron Simmons. And we're going to start out, man. If I'm not mistaken, you were just recently inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, right?
What better honor can it be, right? That lets me know I did something right when I was playing football, right? Although I missed a couple of tackles, but I think I might have made more tackles than I missed.
I tell you what, I hear you were a pretty violent, angry man there on the FSU football field, tearing it up, right?
There's no other way. Listen, when you're playing football, right, brother, violence is the only thing you can know. Now, I'm not promoting it, but I sure as hell promote it when I'm on the football field.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you and The Rock have a little bit of a rivalry, the whole FSU-Miami thing going on?
Listen, man, hey, look, that wasn't no rivalry. What that was, listen, he better be glad I wasn't coming through there when he was playing, right? I would have ran on the field, pulled a Woody Hayes on him, right? Just ran out there just to tackle his ass, right? That's why I took it out on him when I got him in the Nation.
I think that actually leads us into a pretty good question James has got about the Nation of Domination days.
Sure. The question is, basically, when they came in, they had you pretty much doing like a Black Panthers almost kind of angle. What was your interpretation of the Nation of Domination angle, and how do you feel it played out?
Well, they didn't have me doing an interpretation of the Black Panther, as far as that, the way that goes. Hell, I was the Black Panther when I came into there, right? And still got some of that in me. I mean, that's just that was part of the way I was feeling and the way I had looked at things, from the outside. And then what better way to get something more across when you're being a professional wrestler, right? What gives the realism, in my view of it, is when you are somewhat of that character. And at that time I was. And that's why I think that went so well, when I was doing that, because of that militancy that came out in it. But if you notice, I was very diversified in it when I was doing that, right? I had whites in there, blacks, Latinos, everybody. So I didn't discriminate. If you couldn't get the job done, you didn't belong in the nation.
Of course, you were the first African American WCW Heavyweight Champion, which proves that you did more than things right on the football field. You also did it right in the ring. How is the honor of being the first African American WCW Champion?
Oh man, I don't think I'll ever set in on me, And as you can see, that everybody wants to get to know me now. That's my phone ringing now. Right? That's probably a member of the nation. But but anyway, that does to me. I think that's one of my biggest goals, man. That is the biggest, because what that did is open up a lot of doors, man. That has been, it had primarily been a sport and a business that had been monopolized by whites, and the struggle was hard, And as you can see, you look around, I mean, at the level that you want to work at, it still hasn't balanced itself out, but it's gotten better. So I was just proud to have been able to stick with it, open up some more doors so you can see some of the more talented black young men and women coming here now. And I think that I did a good job in it, and I hope that if anybody can benefit from it, that they do.
A perfect example of that would be, of course, Booker T, right? He went on to be a 5-time, as we all know, WCW champion. So, you paved the groundwork for him. That's the way to be.
And he's an excellent wrestler, by the way, man. Doing a good job.
What would you say the major differences between WCW and the WWF were in terms of the way the companies were run?
Night and day, if that is to put it plainly to you, right? During the day, you can get a lot more things accomplished, right? Am I right? So in the nighttime, you have to sneak around, cut each other's throat, and do things behind each other's back. That's the way WCW was ran. Now, as opposed to Vince McMahon is probably the best promoter that I have worked with, that I've even been associated with. And I'm proud to say that. And I wouldn't say that just to, like to kiss his ass. The guy's good. And he's very good at what he does, They had a bunch of people down there running WCW that had any business whatsoever what they were doing. They were taking people just running around that were running pizza shops and doing this, never set foot in the ring. You had no idea what they were doing. It's kind of hard for you to tell me how to play football when you've never caught a pass, isn't it? When you never touched a damn football, how you gonna tell me how to play? But we got a lot of people doing that these days, right? Right. So that's how that went.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people we've talked to have even said that they're not a big fan of Vince McMahon per se, but they still respect his business savvy and his knowledge of the wrestling business. So, I mean, you definitely got to give credit where credit is due in that area.
Yeah, you got to give the man his props, whether you like him or not. See, hey, the guy is great at what he's done. It's generational passed down, and what better way to get to know it, all the aspects of the business, than to be in it like they have been their entire family.
After the Nation, of course, you were part of the APA with JBL, who's now the WWE Heavyweight Champion. What is your gut reaction when you hear that JBL is now the world champion?
I feel, hey, man, I've been up and down the road with him for like 7 or 8 years, Hell, that's my boy. I'm thrilled to death. And I don't care he's flipped out or whatever, right? I'm still on his side. I got to pull for him. That's my man. That's my dog. We've been together like that, We know each other, We know what it takes. We know the ins and outs, We know what to have to flip, the side of it and everything. I want him to keep the belt and to go on being a champion for as long as it's possible, But although he's got his hands full now, I might add with John Cena, guy's young, got youth on his side, very athletic, very strong, quick, agile. So everything, he got all the favorable attributes. But one thing, you can have all of those, and those are very qualifications to have. But guess what? When you've got knowledge, sometimes, brother, overcomes all of it. And that's what JBL has on his side.
I got to ask you a quick question, going back to JBL. How much of your APA characters were actually just you guys and how you really were? Because it seems like all the skits I've seen and watched over the years were actually pretty genuine. It was like the two guys were, really good friends, and it wasn't like a whole lot of it was scripted. They kind of sat you down and let you go, man.
That's why it came across as you saw it and everyone else perceived. It was us. it wasn't nothing of rehearsed or a skit. This is what they wanted to do, and then whenever they brought in whoever it was, a character, whether it be rappers or midgets or whatever or whatever the hell they was that they brought in, right? All they had to do was just bring it in and just sit them with us, because we would have, if we were in a bar without being in front of a microphone or being in front of a camera, right? We would have did the same thing to that midget, right? That we did when we were on that camera and at the table. So that was us, That's the way we had fun like that, man. Enjoyed ourselves, enjoyed being around each other. And then I think a lot of people that had fun and wanted to do that because it wasn't nothing that great, but that's just the way we did it,
And it definitely came across well on TV. As I said, you could definitely tell you guys were having genuinely fun, and it was some of the funnier skits that you've seen on Raw in some time.
Let me ask you this now. What better place is it than to have a setting like that? Okay, you get a cigar, you get to sit down and have a few beers, right? Hell, you might even get to see a naked chicken, whatever in there every now and then again. That's it. Doesn't get any better than that.
Any chance we might see you return to the ring to face JBL in the ring?
I will see how that, what happens with that. But see, that's no animosity or anything, as far as like with myself and everything, with him and all that stuff, Things go down and happen, but yeah, I ain't holding nothing, man. But, we'll see what happens. Hell, it might even be a chance you might see us together. So we'll see what happens with that,
I got another quick question for you. As far as the whole brand extension thing is concerned, it's played out for a couple of years now. There's kind of some rumblings there might be another roster draft, if you will. How do you think the brand extension is held up thus far?
Oh, no, man. That's kind of hard to call, because when you look at it, when they go through that, you get certain fans are comfortable with time slots and seeing their favorites on one particular show, and then the way people get balanced out working, their kids and all of that, and then certain guys that are wrestling, they get, caught in a groove that they're comfortable with, and then all of a sudden now they got a different partner, and it might even be, a different gender, right? So, that has its ways of being positive for some guys, and then it doesn't work out like that for a lot of them. So that's a long shot to call, man.
Mind if we close out with a few word associations, but just a few names from your career? If you have a word answer, that's great. If you have a story you want to share, that's fine too. How about your former tag team partner in Doom, Butch Reed?
Great tag team partner. Great tag team partner. Yeah, one of the best.
How about Teddy Long?
Was a good manager, very good manager. Had great big mouth, covered up for myself and Butch a lot of times when we got tongue tied, He's never tied, never lost a word, but very good at what he does.
How about somebody that actually was the promoter when you got the championship belt, Bill Watts?
I have no love for him.
No love? Wow. Surprising. How about two more names, and then we'll let you go. How about the name that we mentioned about the college football, The Rock?
Made his ass. Totally forgotten about me now. Won't even stick me in one of his movies.
And the last name I have for you is your boss, Vince McMahon.
Great boss, and I'm not just kissing his ass. Like I said before, man, good at what he does. If I'm not mistaken, if he's doing that word associating thing, I thought I saw another word on there, and that was Vader, right?
That's correct, sir.
Kicked his ass. Became the first black heavyweight champion.
Do you have anything you want to promote here as far as WrestleMania goes? Any parting shots?
No, the only thing I like to say, man, is, look, is that it's been fun kicking it with you guys, and hopefully we get a chance to do this again. And everybody out there, right, get a chance, tune in. WrestleMania is going to be one of the best.
And thank you for your time, Mr. Ron Simmons. We definitely appreciate it. For James, excuse me, this is Chuck.
This is Ron Simmons, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM.
This is Alicia Edwards, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling.
Now that was a great interview, ladies and gentlemen. I had so much fun sitting down with Ron Simmons. I'd like to extend a thank you to him, as well as the entire WWE, for allowing us to go there on the WrestleMania tour bus. James and I definitely had a wonderful time. And we also have a Candice Michelle interview that runs about, 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to play for you guys a little bit later on in the show.
Yes, sir.
But at this point in time, we got James on the phone, excuse me,
You
Eric.
got Eric on the phone. You got James sitting next to you.
Eric, you there, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing, man?
That was loud. How you doing, Eric?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Well, for those who don't know, Eric and I have been doing a Road to WrestleMania tour of our own on our website, WrestlingEpicenter.com, and we've been covering some of the WrestleMania moments from the past, going through match by match, 1 through 20. Of course, I just posted 13 and 14 today, and Eric's going to come on to do a little reminder of just what kind of magic moments do occur at WrestleMania. So, Eric, let me ask you this question. What was your favorite WrestleMania moment of all time?
I think anyone who knows me will probably know the answer would be WrestleMania 12 when Shawn Michaels won the World Heavyweight Championship.
The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, look who's talking. You were the guy that cried when Hogan lost to WrestleMania 6 to the Warrior because you thought the era was ending.
Well, I can't deny that.
Oh man, that's tough. You cried over that, huh?
I was 8 years old.
All right, Eric. Let's ask you this. Over, let's say, since 2000, what's been your favorite WrestleMania moment?
I'd have to say it's pretty recent, but just a moment that I think was emotional for a lot of people was Chris Benoit's title victory. I think when that happened, you knew it was a moment. You could feel the energy. You didn't even have to be there live. You could just feel the energy watching on your TV, and it was an incredible moment. For me as a wrestling fan, I think a lot of people to see that guy who worked so hard finally get what he'd wanted all his life, and I think that's probably since 2000 my favorite WrestleMania moment.
My favorite moment would probably be Hogan against The Rock, the entire match, just because the fact is they went into that match thinking Hogan was going to get booed and Rock was going to be the face. The crowd made it go the other way around. Those guys didn't have to speak a word to each other. They looked at each other and realized role reversal. And what happened was probably the greatest match, or at least one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history.
That just right there was a match that showed you don't necessarily have to have the best athleticism or the best wrestling moves, but you know, if you've paid your dues, worked hard, which a lot of superstars in the WWE have not gotten to that point yet. Like he said, nothing needs to be said. You know, just to stare down, and it's like magic right there. And that was not the only good match in that WrestleMania card. I believe that was the first time Triple H had won the WWE title as a face, if I'm not mistaken, against Chris Jericho, right?
Don't get me started on that match. I've wasted too many hours of my life talking about how poorly booked that match was. I mean, having the damn champion pick up after Stephanie McMahon's dog was just absolutely ridiculous and disrespectful to Chris Jericho.
Yep. Yeah,
I'd also like to just chime in with another WrestleMania moment that I thought of as one of the better ones and one of the better WrestleManias overall was the one that took place in California where we had Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels with the Iron Man match. It was our first time seeing Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin appear in WrestleMania. You guys got any thoughts on those?
Well, that's a match that Triple H would like to forget happened. He got killed in about 1 minute and 6 seconds by the Ultimate Warrior. Honestly, I thought that was a good WrestleMania. I didn't think that was the best one. If you're going to ask me what my favorite WrestleMania moment of all time was, WrestleMania 3, Hogan against Andre, 93,179 people in attendance, 73 people, pardon me, in attendance. That was just utterly awe-inspiring just to see the arena that night.
Well, I have to say that my favorite WrestleMania of all time would probably have to be WrestleMania 14 because it was stocked from top to bottom with matches that were just built up for a very long time, matches that all turned out to be very good. You had the celebrities involved that really gave it a special feel. It was, in my opinion, the best card that Russo has ever put together, and it was also the beginning of the Attitude Era, which is very historical, and also was the beginning of the changing of the guard as WCW was losing its grip and WWE was about to get a stranglehold on the business, and it just, fantastic card.
Just to give some insight into that, you're talking about WrestleMania 14, correct? That took place in Boston. We saw Kane versus The Undertaker, HBK versus Stone Cold, with Mike Tyson as the guest referee, as well as Triple H versus the late Owen Hart.
Yes, sir. That was a fantastic card. I was a WCW fan, very solid WCW fan at the time, but I even enjoyed that card, and I was not giving WWE much credit for just about anything at that point.
Well, I'd also like to chime in with the one that just took place a couple years ago in Seattle, where we obviously saw Angle and Lesnar. I thought we saw a great match with Hardy and Mysterio. Another great match with Jericho and Michaels, and with Rock and Stone Cold for probably the last time.
And I think the forgotten match on that card was Vince McMahon against Hulk Hogan, two guys either 50 or above.
went in there and had an insane match. And I just remember what Eric told me on the phone once, and I went and looked for it. When they did a thing where the camera panned and you saw McMahon come up from under the ring, and he was bleeding at this point, he looked like the devil. And he came in there and he looked like he was going to kill Hogan, and of course Hogan got the win. And they did an angle that made no sense right after that. But it was probably the most excited I've been for a WrestleMania match in years.
We got to send you on your way now. We appreciate you calling in here tonight discussing your favorite past WrestleManias. We look forward to having you on next Tuesday as we can do a little WrestleMania recap, and we'll be looking forward to speaking with you then, man.
All right, now stay tuned for more from the interactive interview.
Yo, Monkey, it's me. It's DDP. Stay tuned and feel the...
Welcome back to the interactive interview, as we're now going to enter our SmackDown discussion, as both of Eric and both of us, Chuck and James, have both. That was terrible. Both of us have seen SmackDown, and we're going to discuss it now. I thought SmackDown was a solid show last week. I didn't think it was the greatest show of all time by any means, but I thought the greatest segment coming out of the show was Kurt Angle dressed up as Shawn Michaels doing the Shawn Michaels shtick.
That was definitely added a good touch of humor with a good mix of his intensity and another good element of where this feud's going to go and the possibility that it may in fact steal the spotlight here at this WrestleMania 21.
Going into the show, I didn't think that that was going to be the case. I honestly have never been that impressed with Kurt Angle. I've always thought that he was a little bit on the overrated side, but when he's been doing this shtick, and this feud has been built very well. It's had a couple months behind it. It started at the Royal Rumble. They've had Marty Jannetty involved. This week they had sensational Sherry Martel, who I've interviewed as well on the show. It was very well built up. I think this match is going to deliver. I think it's going to deliver well. I don't think it's going to be a classic, but I think it's going to be probably a 4 or 5 star match.
Right on. What else did you find interesting about this past week's SmackDown?
They finally started the Eddie Guerrero against Rey Mysterio Jr. feud, which they've been pretty much promoting since at least No Way Out, and it just never has happened. And finally they started the feud, or so-called feud, and now it seems that that match will take place at WrestleMania, and it's going to be a polite feud in certain sense. Of course, they also tried to do their best to promote Akibono against Big Show. Big Show, of course, being, I guess, would be the babyface in this match. It's odd when you have a celebrity come in and the babyface is facing the celebrity, because usually the celebrity gets the cheers. Unfortunately, I don't think that many people know who Akibono is, so I think this is going to go in Big Show's favor.
And we have yet another caller here this evening. A caller, you're on the air with the interactive interview. You there, buddy? All right, is this Brian? I'm right?
Yeah, that actually was pretty funny. We haven't even touched on that yet. The ending segment involved John Cena completely reigning over. He ran over JBL, and etiquette would dictate that if JBL doesn't get some kind of revenge on SmackDown, then I think JBL holds the belt at WrestleMania.
I never thought John Cena was going to walk away with the belt. No way.
Well, I mean, that's what people seem to think, but we're going to have our WrestleMania predictions in just a few minutes. Of course, we're going to be joined by Candice Michelle in a few minutes as well, and then as soon as we come back from that, we will have our WrestleMania picks. Thanks for calling in, brother. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
All right.
Later on, buddy.
Thanks a lot. So, Chuck, anything else you want to talk about on SmackDown?
You know, not necessarily. I thought it was an okay show. I'm kind of looking forward more to this week's SmackDown. Is we're going to see probably some more interaction from the Randy Orton and The Undertaker, which I'm looking forward to. We may see some retaliation on behalf of Shawn Michaels for Kurt Angle's little run-in. And I think we're going to see our first appearance by Akibono, as you just mentioned. So there's going to be a lot of things done to help cement this WrestleMania as a quality event. So I'm psyched to see this Thursday's SmackDown. But at this point in time, we're going to jump right to a quick break, and we're going to hit you guys with that like 3-minute, 4-minute Candice Michelle interview, and then we're going to come back and do our WrestleMania predictions. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, our phone lines are open for any call-ins. The number is 480-965-1260. And if you guys are listening online, we always have AOL Instant Messenger up. You can IM me at ChuckD1260. Once again, that is ChuckD1260 with your thoughts. And we'll put that out in the air. As I said before, here's the Candice Michelle interview. Keep it locked right here to the interactive interview, only on ASU's original alternative, The Blaze, 1260 AM.
This is a Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Thank you for having me on your radio.
And with us now we have Candice Michelle, one of the new Raw Divas, and probably better known as the GoDaddy.com star. That commercial aired during the Super Bowl. don't you tell us a little bit about how that little commercial spot kind of helped your career? I'm sure it's skyrocketed you quite a bit. So yeah, just give us a little overview of that whole ordeal that went down.
Okay. It was such a controversial commercial that I feel like it was my big break. And of course, I had no idea. I was just so excited to have my first Super Bowl commercial. But then when they didn't play the second spot, it became so controversial, and I got so many interviews out of it, and pretty much got into, millions of viewers' homes, and so it was really a great break for me.
So if I'm not mistaken, you had the opportunity to sit down with Howard Stern, right? You got to tell me a little bit about what that was like.
I was actually really excited to meet Howard. I wasn't nervous. I know how Howard is. I watch his show very often, and I think he's just an upfront, honest guy. So I knew everything he was going to come at me with, so I just went in there and had fun, and I actually really enjoyed his company.
We got a couple questions here from James.
Of course, the first time we had an opportunity to see you in wrestling was on the Raw Diva Search. What made you decide to try out for such an interesting contest?
Well, I was a huge wrestling fan growing up, but I love to be involved in shows where it's involves athleticism, and then it's also on TV, and it's two things that I'm really big in. I grew up playing sports my whole life, and I moved to LA to become an actress, so it's the perfect combination of the two.
Now, do you prefer working in front of a live crowd, or do you kind of prefer the behind the scenes of like set work or the green screen kind of deal? What one is your favorite to do?
Without a doubt, in front of a live crowd. I mean, the second you step out onto that stage and you walk out, the adrenaline rush that you get and the excitement from all the fans that are there, I mean, I think it's the reason why people are in this business.
Okay, you mentioned that you were a fan growing up. This is just something that I'm curious about. Who were some of your favorites?
My favorite back in the day was Hulk Hogan, but I remember Ric Flair, which is really interesting to be able to work with him today. Back when I was a kid, I never thought I'd be in the wrestling business, and I never thought I'd be working with Ric Flair, so that's great. I mean, I was there with the Bushwhackers, Hillbilly, everybody, all the great people from back in the day.
You mentioned athletics. Is there any chance that you would actually get trained like Christy Hemme is to get into the ring?
As of right now, I don't plan on wrestling, quote unquote, but you never know what comes in the future. I'm playing this on a day-by-day basis, so we'll see what happens.
Why don't I just give you a couple word associations? If you have a story, you can share it. If you just want to give a one-word answer, that's fine too. Okay. All right, how about Stephanie McMahon?
I think Stephanie McMahon is one of the most beautiful, talented people in the business, and to be able to work with her, I mean, she knows the business inside and out, and it's really an awesome experience to get that opportunity to be with her.
How about somebody that wasn't very popular on the Raw Diva Search contest, Carmella?
I don't know Carmella very well. Of course, from what I saw, like all the other fans did, I mean, I didn't have the best opinion, but then again, it's during a Diva Search, and it's a contest, so, a lot of claws come out at that time, so I don't really know her that well as a person.
And I got two more for you, and that would be the Raw Diva Search winner, Christy Hemme.
I love Christy Hemme. She's a great friend of mine, and I just think I call her my little firecracker.
Do a lot of the Diva Search contestants or the Divas in general, do you guys travel together when you guys are on the road?
Some people travel together and some people don't. I usually room with Christy Hemme, and she's just become a really great friend of mine, and I'm a really big fan of hers myself.
And the last one I have for you is for your boss, Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon has that quality that I call the it factors. When he walks into a room, it's just like this aura surrounds him, and it's just, he's a strong businessman, and he's created one of the best empires in the world, so lots of respect to him. Hi, this is Candace Michelle, and you're listening to the Blaze 1260 AM.
Oh, let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, that was a pleasure for both James and I to sit next to that beautiful young lady, one of the new divas in Raw. She came off the Diva Search that we had about a year ago. No, on Raw.
Okay.
Get your mind out of the gutter, man. Come on now. I'll tell you what, though, she was gorgeous, and she was kind of spilling out of her bra during the whole interview, so it was kind of hard for James and I to conduct it properly. But we're professionals, so we did the best we could. Once again, we'd like to extend a sincere thank you.
Oh, yes, I'm actually looking at your face right now.
Yeah, well, I'd also like to send a sincere thank you to the WWE team for letting us spend some time with them this past weekend. It was a blast for us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to those interviews. But at this point in time, man, we got to do what we're here to do, the main segment of our show tonight here. It is our WrestleMania 21 predictions. I know we both have a lot of thoughts. You want to go first, James, or should we just go match by match and give our thoughts? Maybe we'll just go match by match. We'll start out with Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, I got to pick Guerrero on this, and I'll give you my reason why.
Okay.
I think Rey Mysterio's over, I think they're going to do something with the Cruiserweight division after WrestleMania 21.
God hopes.
And I think it would only be beneficial for Guerrero to go ahead and win this match. We haven't seen him win a meaningful match in quite some time. And to think a year ago, he was the WWE Champion here at WrestleMania. He left, with the championship. I think it's time to give him a quality win, and I think it's going to come this Sunday at WrestleMania.
How the mighty have fallen when Eddie Guerrero is concerned. Last year he was main eventing WrestleMania against Kurt Angle. This year he barely has a match on the card with Rey Mysterio.
It's going to be the curtain jerker, I think.
I think it's going to be the curtain jerker. That's what we're trying to do here. We have the match listed in order in the way that we would probably book them if we were going from beginning to end. But basically that was match number 1. I say that Rey Mysterio Jr. goes down to Eddie Guerrero this year, because it just seems to me like Rey Mysterio would not be the logical next main eventer, and Eddie could step back up to that level at any time.
So we're in agreement with match number 1. We're going to go on to match number 2. I got to believe that's going to be the Big Show versus Akebono. I don't see it being necessarily
bathroom break
any higher up on the card. I got to say, Big Show takes this one simply because Akebono is not under contract with the WWE, and it's not going to add anything to the product down the road.
What's awkward about this match, and I said this in the last segment, is Big Show's a babyface. Usually when you bring in a superstar to face a wrestler, the wrestler tends to be a heel, like Shawn Michaels and Bam Bam Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor, of course, from WrestleMania 11 that we didn't discuss earlier. But, it just seems to me like it's going to be a little awkward when you have this match. I think Big Show either wins or we get a no contest.
Do you think maybe Big Show could turn heel here?
1 week before WrestleMania? It'd be a little rushed.
No, I mean actually at WrestleMania during this match.
Well, I don't think people care enough about Akebono to turn him heel. I think he can take out a gun and shoot him and he wouldn't turn heel. I mean, look at The Undertaker last year. He buried Paul Bearer in cement and he stayed a babyface. So.
I was thinking maybe he could go like AWOL or something like that, start beating Akebono up with a chair, get on the mic and be like, I have no respect for anybody, this is all a big joke. I don't know, something like that.
I believe the term is going postal.
Right. I believe the next match that we're probably going to see is going to be the Trish versus Christy match.
Yes, sir.
I don't exactly know how to call this match. I have mixed feelings. This is probably where I'm going to be wrong. I would pick Trish to win it, but something in the back of my mind tells me they're going to go ahead and give it to Christy for maybe a night. Have someone win it back on Raw the next night. Just because I think it's beneficial for the WWE to have a Playboy, centerfold, the caliber of Christy Hemme, at least have the belt for some point in time.
We got a guest sitting right behind us. He made a point before we went on the air that on the Playboy edition of Christy Hemme, he made the point that she is labeled the WWE Women's Champion. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. She on the actual issue. When you saw the when Trish was actually blacking that out with the spray can, they had it on there that Christy was the Women's Champion. So. Just for the sake of that, they're probably going to give it to her.
Yeah, I would say that logic would dictate, and sometimes they do give those things away, and I think this is probably one of those cases. I think it would be terrible for the women's division, but then again, we have about 4 women that actually know how to work at this point, so it doesn't really matter.
Nevertheless, who are you going to pick?
I'm going to say Christy.
I'm going to actually still stick with my choice of Trish, just because I've kind of read some spoilers as I cheat a little bit, and it seems that there's going to be a 3-way match at a house show for the Women's Championship against Trish, Molly, and Victoria, so logic in that area would dictate that she's going to go ahead and keep the title. We'll have to wait and see on that. The next match I have listed is going to be the 6-man ladder match. Now, I'm not going to give you my pick on this one first. You're going to go first, because I had a terrible time trying to pick the winner of this match.
I have had a terrible time as well. Originally, I was going to say it's Edge. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think that Jericho's the one that introduced the match. Jericho's the one that they've really not done anything with since 2002. I don't know. I think Jericho might go over, but honestly, my gut tells me to stick with what I said initially, and what I said initially was I think they're going to give it to Edge.
Dude, we're basically in agreement on all these. This kind of isn't that fun. Here was my thought. I thought perhaps I've been noticing a really good crowd response on Christian's behalf. And he's got a lot of experience in ladder matches. He could do some definite high spots, kind of steal the match himself, and maybe they go ahead and give him the win. That's what I would like to see happen.
I'd love to see Captain Charisma get the win.
And then get a push at some point in time. But once again, logic is going to go ahead and dictate to me that Edge is going to take this one, and I'll give you the reason why. Basically, there's a 6-man match. 4 out of those men are faces. Only 2 of them are heels, being Edge and Captain Charisma. Depending on the outcome of the main event, which I think we're all probably going to be in agreement on, they're going to need someone who is of a heel stature to go ahead and face the champion later on down the road. And I don't think that they're ready to give it to Christian for some reason or another. I think he needs to break away from Tomko before that can happen.
Right.
And they spent a lot of time and energy building up Edge's character over the last couple months. I don't think they want to let that go to waste, and I think Edge gets the nod in this six-man Money in the Bank ladder match.
Maybe Matt Hardy can come out and they can start a feud with them, since everybody seems to be in agreement that it might be a work at this point.
I'm still not in agreement with that. I think it's legitimate, but that's going to be another topic for another time. We'll actually
Yes,
see how
sir.
that one
Next
pans
match on the card that we believe will be next will be Shawn Michaels against Kurt Angle. Initially, I was not looking forward to this match. I really thought that Angle was not going to be able to carry his load. I think they've done this feud so brilliantly by bringing in all people from Shawn Michaels' past. I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how this match pans out. I don't expect it to be 5 stars. Some people do. I think it'll be a 3-star match, but I think it will be what you remember. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Shawn Michaels gets the win.
I am of the opposite nature on this one. Finally, we're going to disagree, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be a 5-star match. It's going to steal the show, bar none. I think both men are as healthy as they can be, which is something we haven't seen from either of them in quite some time. With Shawn Michaels, leg injury a couple months ago. Kurt Angle, obviously, with the neck and hamstring problems. Both men say they feel pretty good. They've been showing some good matches within the last couple weeks. They've got Kurt Angle kind of rested up. He's been taking some time off with his Kurt Angle challenge. And I think Kurt Angle's going to get the win on this one for the simple fact I think he's going to go to Raw, and I think they need a new top heel to have on Raw. I don't think they have enough heels at this point in time.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there in that I think they have too many heels, because I think the glass ceiling has been hit by Edge, because he was on his way to being the top heel in the company, and of course once you butt heads with Triple H, you're not going to take his spot.
Well, the reason why I say this will become apparent when we pick the winner. So we're going to hold off that discussion, I think, till the end, because I think when I divulge, and you divulge who our winner of the World Heavyweight Champion is, I can kind of give my explanation for all this face and heel talk.
That would make sense.
But yeah, I got to give a nod to Kurt Angle, simply because not only is he going to go to Raw, and they're going to need another heel, but he hasn't been given a quality win in a pay-per-view, or I can't even remember him being on a pay-per-view in some time in a capacity that's been meaningful. Even his last match at WrestleMania with Eddie Guerrero wasn't
was
that great
subpar.
of a
I would
match.
say it was
Yeah.
subpar. Everybody on the internet seems to think it was the greatest match ever. I thought it was really subpar.
It was okay. The ending was nothing great. I mean, his shoe
Right.
fell off. So I think it's time for Kurt Angle to get back on track. I think he's healthy, and I think the match is going to go to him.
Well, I mean, we can wait and see. Shawn Michaels has not exactly been the greatest at putting people over of late, as we've seen. So who knows? I mean, as we see the Royal Rumble when he beat Edge, which was not necessary.
And next match I think we have on the card is going to be The Undertaker versus the Legend Killer, Randy Orton. How do you see this one going, James?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Everybody's now saying that Randy may now be hurt. Initially, I was going to say that there's no way in hell that The Undertaker's going over. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think logic would say that The Undertaker goes over. That said, logic is not always my strong suit. So I'm going to say in my bet that Orton goes over, but if he legitimately is injured and he's going to be out till SummerSlam like I read today, then I don't think it would make sense to do that.
Come on now, we can't have you be a tweener.
All right, like I said, I'm sticking with Orton, even though I think logic says Undertaker wins.
Right on. I'm also going to pick Orton in this match. I don't think The Undertaker wrestles enough to warrant a WrestleMania win or to have his 12-0 streak intact. I think it will benefit Randy Orton as a newly turned heel. I think he's going to go to SmackDown, and I think he'll flourish there with a bunch of new feuds as a top heel. And I think he's going to get that WWE Championship, I would say within the next 6 months on SmackDown, once he gets back from his injury. If he is legitimately injured, which I heard he is. I've heard it's nothing too serious, though. I don't know if you've read anything that...
Before we went on the air, I was reading some story that said he could be out until SummerSlam, which, if that's true, then that's a definite blow to the WWE, because he's definitely one of their top players right now.
I wouldn't even be surprised if that was maybe a work in itself.
Right.
I don't know if the WWE is that tricky enough, but to say he's injured could really get people guessing on this feud as to who's going to go ahead and take it.
Right, and I'm interested to see who does win it. I think it's going to be a good match. I just hope they don't do anything goofy with Druids or anything like that. I think the era of the Druids and people coming down in capes is over.
All right, we got 2 matches left here, and well, you know what? Let's save the main event matches, and let's go to what we think is going to happen here with the appearance of Hogan. What do you think Hogan's going to do on this WrestleMania?
Well, of course, you have something that we haven't touched on, and I'm going to touch on it here because I think it's going to involve it as well. The Piper's Pit with Steve Austin and, of course, Roddy Piper hosting the show. I am going to be curious to see what happens there. Hogan's done 2 radio interviews in the past 2 weeks. In one interview, he pretty much cuts a promo on Muhammad Hassan, who swears he's going to have a match on the pay-per-view. Then you have Hogan going on another radio show and saying that he wants to face Steve Austin. Well, Austin's going to be there. So maybe you'll see a confrontation there. It could go either way. Either way, though, I do not see Hogan standing on the ring apron or the aisleway like the other legends will, saying, hey, you know, I just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. How you doing? Like they did last year with a lot of legends. Hogan's larger than life. He's not going to be used in that capacity. He's going to do something. It's just a matter of what.
Okay, here's my thoughts on this. I think Hogan is going to end up challenging Muhammad Hassan to a match. Remember, last time we saw Hogan, he was Mr. America. I don't think there's anyone more synonymous with, you know, the USA chant as Hulk Hogan is a face. Muhammad Hassan, as I mentioned earlier in the show, has definitely developed into a top-tier heel. And I think it'd be a pretty good match. And I think Hassan, you might hate me for saying this, but would be able to carry Hogan to an okay match. I mean, it's no secret that Hogan is not the greatest wrestler.
I disagree with that. I think when you say professional wrestler, some people think athlete. But then again, there's been some great athletes that have been terrible pro wrestlers. So,
I would agree.
So, I mean, when you say professional wrestler, I always think of, do they draw money? And the fact is, Hogan draws money.
I'll give you that he does draw money. I just think that his athleticism and his agility in the ring is obviously...
Well, don't forget, he is 51 years old.
And I'm not knocking him. There
Right.
is no knock. It's just, you know, Father Time catches up with everybody.
Right.
Even the immortal Hulk Hogan. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Piper's Pit with Stone Cold Steve Austin is probably going to be a little bit of a downer, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that's going to come out of that.
I can't see what they can do because I think when people see Piper, they're going to cheer him, even though he was a heel last time he was on TV.
I was thinking maybe we might see something with like Vince McMahon come out and, you know, Stone Cold does something to him. But McMahon is not under the best health with his injury. So I don't
Maybe
know
he
how
can
that
run
could
down
work
and
out either.
slide into the ring.
I mean, maybe some reminiscence of the hospital scene where Stone Cold attacks him.
Yeah.
Or, you know...
Well, they did show that on Raw. So.
Right, and maybe him and Stone Cold and Piper go off on a tirade against the McMahon. Something along those lines I could see happening. But I think it's going to kind of be the letdown of the show, to be completely honest with you.
I'm not overly looking forward to it. It is advertised on the commercials, but I personally just don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, I'm not of the Austin era. I honestly never really cared for him. So.
All right, at this point in time, I don't mean to interrupt you, James, but we're running out of time. We still got 2 picks to go.
Sure.
Let's hear what you say about the SmackDown main event.
SmackDown main event, I say, unless something catastrophic happens on SmackDown, which is probably being taped as we speak, I say JBL holds on to the belt.
And why?
The way they booked last week's SmackDown was John Cena completely running amok over him. Pretty much that's been the way it's gone. They haven't really gotten the better of Cena since he lost the U.S. belt, and since then Cena's been getting the better of them. I say Cena is going to shine too much going into the main event, and he's going to get cut down to size by JBL.
I disagree here. I think it's time for a change. JBL's had a great run, but he's beaten a lot of people on the roster at this point in time who are able to challenge for the championship. I think it's time to give the nod to Cena, start some new feuds with Cena and other main eventers that he hasn't necessarily faced in high-profile feuds, a la Eddie Guerrero. I mean, we've seen him wrestle before, but not in a title match capacity. In addition to that, I think that this SmackDown that's happening here this evening, we're going to see JBL and the Cabinet get the better of Cena going into WrestleMania, which would then kind of reverse your thought process.
If that happens, then I might be wrong. But I have a feeling that they're going to keep Cena hot going into Mania, and I think he's getting cut down to size because I do not see them changing both belts at WrestleMania.
All right, we got 3 minutes left. Let's
Yes,
go
sir.
here with the Raw main event. This is obviously the main event of WrestleMania, in my opinion. We have Triple H going up against
Batista.
The Animal Batista.
Yep.
You got to tell me why you're picking the way you're picking. But don't give us the pick first. We want to know why you're picking the way you're picking.
Well, logic would dictate because of the way they built it up, and it kind of goes against what I just said about John Cena. I just don't see them not giving the belt to Batista at this point. I think right now you're at the point with JBL, with Triple H, where he's got the belt. Everybody really realizes he's got the belt for the past, feels like forever. So I think it's time for a change, like you said. I don't think Batista is necessarily the best person to go to, but that's who they got. So I think Batista walks out with the belt.
I gotta agree with you here that Batista's going to take the belt, but for different reasons. Again, it's kind of one of those situations where they've invested a lot in a certain character's push, and I think it would be a horrible injustice if he didn't win the belt, because then he's buried.
Where do you go next? Where do you go next?
Exactly. I think this is a no-brainer, which kind of scares me to say that, because that kind of makes me think that maybe they'll throw a swerve at us. But even that, I mean, it's only going to be then another month until Batista does get it. And I think that does more damage to his character than it does good. So I think he's going to pick up the nod. He's going to win the belt here at this WrestleMania. And I don't think there's even going to be a Triple H rematch, to be honest with you. I think we're going to get Kurt Angle over to Raw, and I think that's where they're going to go next. Which is why I mentioned before why I think Kurt Angle gets the nod, as well as Edge is going to win the Money in the Bank match, because Batista's going to stay a face, and they're going to need some good heels to face Batista that we haven't seen before.
The trouble with that strategy, though, means that you got Kurt Angle now on Raw, you got Edge on Raw, and you got Triple H on Raw. 3 of the most over heels in the company. Where do you go next?
Well, I don't know where you go next. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But I guess we're pretty much both in agreement that Batista's got to win it.
I think its logic would say that, yes, he has to win it.
All right, and at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we have to go. We got Metal Mania coming up next. James?
But I just wanted to tell everybody to tune in Sunday night for WrestleMania on pay-per-view, and of course check out the Hall of Fame banquet ceremony, whatever you want to call it, this Saturday night on Spike TV. Thank you for tuning into the interactive interview. We do appreciate it.
And at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you to check out for more information. You can go to WrestlingEpicenter.com. We'll have some more talk between James and I on the upcoming WrestleMania. We appreciate you listening to the interactive interview. You're tuned here to ASU's original alternative, The Blaze, 1260 AM.